Right now, there are over 15,000 studios and 30,000 one-bedroom apartments listed for sale in Dubai. But which one should you buy to make the most money? This is a question we get asked all the time by both first-time and experienced investors. And in this video, I will share everything you need to know to make the investment that fits you right now. Starting with the market conditions. Because data shows that studios and one-bedrooms are actually not performing equally. Let's look at the historical value growth first. What if you had bought a studio several years ago? How much would you have made? We conducted this analysis for 9 major areas where both studios and one-bedroom apartments are available. Here is a graph showing the price per square foot growth over the past 5 years. Among these neighborhoods, in 2019, the most affordable studios could be found in Discovery Gardens and Arjan, where the price per square foot was around $165. In 2024, Discovery Gardens prices increased to $246, while Arjan reached $328. The most luxurious option could be found in Palm Jumeirah, where they also showed some growth, from $655 to $792 per square foot. Despite different price points, all these areas showed growth, ranging from 20% to 100% since 2019. On average, we get a 5-year growth of 44%. So an average studio in Dubai that was bought for $155,000 back then now costs around $225,000. Now let's take a look at one-bedrooms. Here are the same areas and the same graph, but for one-bedroom apartments. Overall, the growth trend is quite similar, but the 5-year rate is actually different. The growth range is from 30 to 120%, and the average is roughly 61%. It means that a one-bedroom apartment purchased in 2019 for $225,000 is now valued at around $360,000. But there is another value stream that can seriously affect the investment case. Let's take a look at the average rental rates. By the way, we're using 12-month average numbers for Dubai to reduce the potential effect of seasonal fluctuations. So, an average studio in Dubai can be rented for $12,700 and bought for $225,000. We divide the first number by the second and get 5.6% rent-to-price ratio. Now let's do the same for one-bedrooms. The average new rental contract price for the last 12 months was around $19,900. The average purchase price for the same period was $360,000. It gives us a 5.5 rent-to-price ratio. So the ratio is pretty much the same, and taking into account both value appreciation and rental income, it looks like historically one-bedrooms were the better choice, right? Actually no. Let me explain with an example. This is Business Bay. The name speaks for itself. It's where many offices are concentrated in Dubai, and it is quite central, just 15-minute walk from the Burj Khalifa. Here's the chart with 5-year price per square foot growth. One line represents the average studio, and the other represents the average one-bedroom. Over this period, one-bedroom grew from $328 to $491 per square foot, which is a 50% increase. Over the same period, studios grew from $355 to $628 per square foot, which is a 77% increase. That's 1.5 times higher. Now, rent. Let's do the same analysis we did for the Dubai average. A studio in Business Bay can be rented for $21,300 and bought for $323,000. Divide the first number by the second and you get a 6.6% rent-to-price ratio. Now for one-bedrooms. The average new rental contract price for the last 12 months was around $26,500. The average price for the same period was $450,000. So it gives us a 5.9 rent-to-price ratio. So on average, a studio is a more lucrative investment in Business Bay. The area's advantages are often more compelling to single corporate workers than to families. So many residents choosing this area see no point in renting more space. And this is quite a specific context. Every area has its own, and I know that sometimes these nuances are not that obvious, especially from the outside. So if you need any help with real estate investing in Dubai, you can reach out to us. We help our clients select the target project and close the deal. We do all the financial modeling, help with payment strategies, and basically handle everything end to end, all for free. So click the link below the video or feel free to call or WhatsApp the phone number that's on the screen right now to reach out to my team. By the way, if you tell my team about choosing between a studio or a one-bedroom, they will tell you about a trend happening in the market right now. It basically creates a new category of smaller-sized properties. These are smaller one-bedroom apartments. A typical studio in Dubai is 400 square feet, and a normal one-bedroom is 700 square feet. But the new type of one-bedroom is somewhere in the middle, 550 square feet, and the price is also in the middle. Let me walk you through some examples of buildings where such apartments exist, and let's see how they performed. First, Benghazi Emerald, located in GVC. The area size of a one-bedroom apartment is from 580 to 620 square feet. This grew in value by 36% since 2022, and those who bought at the early stage got 9.4 rent-to-price ratio. Second, Shoba Waves. This building has 520 square foot one-bedrooms. Value appreciation since 2021 is 25%, with an 8.3% rent-to-price ratio. And third, Zara Tower. It is located in Business Bay and offers 467 square foot one-bedrooms. Value growth since 2021 is almost 37%, and rent-to-price ratio is 10.7%. Overall, their value growth is quite normal, matching the general area dynamics with some adjustments for factors specific to these projects. But the rent-to-price ratio is quite good, giving a hint to potential investors that smaller-sized one-bedrooms definitely can be considered, especially for those who are looking for secure and reliable investments. Okay, now you got the idea of how different studios and one-bedrooms are performing, but how to decide which choice is right for you? Let me walk you through this decision maze. First, the budget. Obviously, budget limitations need to be considered. If your budget is $250,000 or less, then a studio is your only choice. Right now, the minimum amount needed for a good studio is $160,000. That would be a price for areas like GVC or Arjan. Those in higher-end locations, like Business Bay or Dubai Marina, would cost around $270,000–300,000. And for the same money, you can get a one-bedroom in a simpler area. For example, in GVC or Arjan, they start from $255,000. In Business Bay or Marina, and in other higher-end areas as well, like Creek Harbor or Dubai Hills, an average one-bedroom would be around $450,000. However, there is actually a third option. If your budget allows, instead of buying a one-bedroom, you can buy 2 studios. The reason to do so is to increase liquidity, because if you buy just one property, you cannot get a part of your money out of it, and in case you need your money, you'd have to sell the property in full. However, if you have 2 studios, you can sell just one and get out a half of your investment. And it's also a good option from a risk diversification perspective, because you can invest in different buildings or even in different areas. Second, property mix. Another thing that should affect your decision is the property mix at the building level. I mean, even if you've chosen an area where studios or one-bedrooms are performing great, you still need to check how many of them are in the building where you're going to buy. Let me explain this with an example. Let's say the building we're analyzing is in downtown. Here's its unit mix. So, 60% of the building is one-bedrooms and only 8% are studios. It means that studios are more rare. And if you buy one, you will face less competition when you sell or rent out. In theory, it leads to better value appreciation and higher rental returns. But that doesn't mean you should blindly go with studios in this case, because they still might not be that good. This brings us to point number 3, property specifics. Sometimes numbers show you that you should choose one option over another, and this can be a trap. Challenge the results of your analysis by doing a reality check. Usually studios suffer the most, but what I'm about to say is actually applicable to both types of apartments. Here are some things to pay attention to. Views. Often developers place studios on the sides of the buildings where the views are not the best, and only the larger and therefore more expensive units get unobstructed views. Use of available space. Quite often, studios come with unpleasant surprises because of the limited space. For example, some of them might have no space for a dishwasher. Not sure your future tenants would love that. One bedrooms, on the other hand, can sometimes be planned worse than studios and, for example, have fewer kitchen counters and therefore less cooking space. And layouts. You probably know that some new apartments are coming with private pools right on the balconies. It has many controversial sides, but here is one of them to think about. Do you think that people who would rent a small-sized apartment prefer extra indoor space or fancy pool on the terrace that they would have to maintain and clean themselves? Fourth, consider your long-term plans. Everyone has their own context and goals, and you should definitely take them into account. For example, do you plan to buy an apartment using a mortgage? If yes, are you planning to buy a bigger apartment later? Let me explain why it's important. Let's say you're purchasing a studio using a mortgage. You have purely investment purposes and plan to keep it for a long time. You make a 20% down payment, and ahead of you are 25 years of mortgage repayments. After some time, say a year later, you decide to get a one-bedroom to live in yourself. It's obviously more expensive, but you didn't spend much on the studio down payment, so you think you can afford a mortgage. But here's the thing, this time the bank will demand a higher down payment, like 40%. Because you already have another mortgage and your risk profile has changed, and paying a 40% down payment for a more expensive unit can be quite disappointing. This is just one of many not so expected nuances awaiting you on your Dubai real estate investment journey. For example, you might be very surprised by how much money you really need to buy a property in Dubai, and we made a separate video about that. Take a look.